It's Monday here. I started this morning by removing some of the clay support from the larger piece, and then I had a quick catch up on Skype with the curator. Now I'm sort of just reviewing a few things here. Hopefully by this afternoon I should be able to share the larger one once I've kind of removed the rest of the clay supports. Right now I think we're just heading into midday here, so I'm going to take a few hours and take the dogs. This is the Brute. This one is the first, and to me it's important because I was working out these dimensions, really, these lines, these bands of color. The other thing I like about it is the shadow. And when you actually can cast a physical shadow, it reads a lot differently. I mean, I like it in its strangeness and its sort of ugliness, but I don't think I would use it in an exhibition per se. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of jagged details here that I would clean up, but of course the splitting is avoidable. So this was from Wednesday or Thursday. Again, it's a step forward. It's another progression. If you remember the stone-based clay I was using, something's going on here that I need to adjust. I mean, the way that you read this in relation to this is not really working, so. But I like it, and together they kind of have it's a very kind of an interesting thing when you see these things. Like, next step, I've done a little bit more paperwork, a bit more planning, but yeah, I think I have enough to try to crack on and to do one more variation. Back at it tomorrow. Tuesday. You can see the leaves have really come in on the trees. Get a lot more of this sort of like bright green. I'm still reflecting on the last journey, on the last sequence of pieces. These runs of paint, the shape, they're sort of longer, they are more defined, they come down to more of a point. Opposed to this, it's a little bit too, slows down, it's a bit too round. I think both of these things work. You have what I would call like a rounded obstacle, and then you also have pointed ones. So they both work. It's just a question of how to use them. I use masking tape to give a sort of a clean edge here, and that carried through onto this one. I dropped that idea, so I didn't use any masking tape. I think that obviously that corresponds better to these lines. I mean, there's no reason that should be this clean white line here. So it's when you're doing this kind of thing, you're charting the course. So there's no point to charge ahead, because the thing that I thought was incredible yesterday or last week, it's like, no, I think once you sit with it for long enough, you could see that it could be improved on, or it could be more refined. So it's almost like a rule that's been generated over the course of this work. The amount of times that you can split this stream, if I call it that, is limited. We have a run here that splits again, but it joins with this run, and it joins with this run. All of these final strands here, they're different to the origin. So in my opinion, this reads much better than, for example, this one. That's taken quite a while just to be able to really clearly simplify what exactly is working and what's not, and to sort of pull apart the different processes that are in play here when you're working with these pieces. So all right, girl. So I've been working here all afternoon, and I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit, so I think I've done as much as I can do for today, so I'm going to just walk away from it and yeah, maybe have a look again with fresh eyes tomorrow. So did a quick piece this morning here, just to return to the idea of this clay, this sort of strand idea. Yeah, I always find it helps when you can work on 2 or 3 things simultaneously. It's nice to have one sort of white band. Once it cures a little bit more, I would clean up this edge so it'll be very fine. I was deconstructing an earlier experiment that didn't work out. Basically just try to salvage the canvas, remove the material, and so I took it apart. And these very, very strange forms appeared. It certainly wasn't an intentional decision, but just an openness to the process. And these things, I think, are really beautiful little things. They feel quite substantial. So I just took them and I just placed them on a paper background. I think the contrast between these lines, the vibrancy of the color set against this, you can fill in with your mind where these lines would have gone, or it's a very curious thing. It's kind of like finding some kind of a fossil. You have to imagine the system or the processes that were involved in creating it. Like it's all contained in this one piece, in this one fragment. So yeah, I think I quite like these. Just worked all morning here on the collection of all these ideas from what I talked about yesterday, and I've used an older canvas, so it's going to affect how this reads. This is a distillation of everything so far. I mean, each one of these is equally detailed. I've tightened up the top here. As I pointed out before, it's far more appealing, I think. Color mix is good. Like, as I said, the only thing that remains is for me to tidy up the background of the canvas, which that's going to be a task in and of itself. I hadn't expected this to go so well, so I used an older canvas, but what is it? Thursday. Just doing a bit of carving here this morning. Some really clean edges coming up. You see what I mean here, like this and this. I mean, that reads very well to me. The amount of work that would be required to bring this up to a finished level is too great. It's too tricky. I'm going to take it apart. Looking at some of these pieces, some of these deconstructed obstacles. So I would like to coat this a few more times and sand it down. It gets to the heart of what I would like to do with these materials. Look at this guy. I mean, all of these lines sort of undulate backwards and they carve out this pattern here, but it's a really, really kind of a vibrant thing. It's so full of life. Yeah, I'm gonna just slowly follow this thread. What is it? Looking at this piece from last week, this crusty f***er, it's cracked, and you see this continues here. So this is it is what it is. I mean, what there's nothing I can do with that really, but still, I mean, that's why I do so many tests, I think, so that you can predict and you can somewhat prevent these kind of things from happening. But here we are on Friday. I spent a lot of time considering this piece and this sort of as a potential for development. You see this one, where it came from. Like, it's incredible the difference in this, how much more substantial it is. I'm not sure what I'm going to attempt next. You're right there, Harry. You're a good boy. I think I had kind of a breakthrough moment. Thank you, Abby. I had kind of a breakthrough moment where, oh, come on. Are you finished, Abby? I spent the morning working on some smaller details. There's very intricate lines and edges involved with these pieces here. Or it was kind of a chance discovery, so I'd like to just think about it a little bit more and how and if I could carry it forward. It's quite nice work. It's very sort of quiet, sort of contemplative work. I shall flash on screen there anything from this week, anything that was interesting or anything that worked out. This week I did a 5-minute interview with Valeria in regards to how quarantine has affected my practice. And that's gone online on Journal Arts programs. So airplane overhead there. Yeah, so I'd like to build towards a virtual exhibition, and different people have been suggesting certain tools that you can use to manifest this. It might be a case of using some kind of a video as well, so I'm going to look into it, but certainly I think I have enough to give kind of a timeline or a narrative of the work since January. I think it would be quite interesting to select the sort of finer pieces. Beautiful kind of bright days, and colours are really vibrant in nature, the flowers coming out. yeah, it's been an interesting week, kind of a little bit stop-start, you know, finding a detour and developing a little bit. But all in all, yeah, it's been a good process, a lot of things this week. So I'll leave it at that. I'm going to sign off, and I shall talk to you again next week, I guess.